Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the International Center Goa. This is our second physical program post-COVID. We tried one in November last year; it didn't quite work out. We had about half a dozen people who came for a book discussion by Vivan Marvaha on the millennials. And just about a week ago, Vivan Marvaha finds himself in a fancy list of Asia Forbes 30 under 30. The book has done so well, and I just thought, what a waste. I mean, you had somebody like him talking about the millennials, such a large segment of India's population, and with very, very low turnout. But that's how it is, and partly because of COVID, partly because of other things, I guess. uh, Today it gives me great pleasure to welcome Mr. Saeed Naqvi. I call him Naqvi Saab, so that's how it will be to the evening. And he needs no introduction, obviously, and I'm not going to read out what he has done and not done over the past 5, 6 decades. Uh, Initially, we had a quick chat about this in the morning, and I said, "Well, I'll just begin with a question on the beginning of the beginning," and he said, "No, no, no, that's not. I mean, it doesn't work for me." So we sort of agreed on that. He'll talk about himself, not in any great detail, but very briefly introduce himself in the form of opening remarks, and then we'll pick up the questions. I also warned him just about half an hour ago that there was a tweet just about 2 hours ago by a young journalist, Shivam Vij, and I'll just read out the tweet to you because there's going to be a question on this later. Shivam Vijay is a young journalist, maybe half my age, maybe in his early 30s. I have never met him, but we follow each other on Twitter. And Shivam Vij tweeted, "Sometimes I think about this WikiLeaks cable and marvel at how astute Saeed Naqvi was. About a year after Rahul Gandhi joined politics in March 2005, Naqvi told an American diplomat he's a flop and the party is over. Naqvi claimed that Gandhi dynastic politics had no future as the family has run out of prime ministerial candidates with appropriate charisma. And there was a link to, an extract from WikiLeaks where Naqvi Sahab is quoted at length. I thought that's a great start to the program itself because I didn't know about this.
Well,
I'm not in the profession and I do not follow everything in Indian politics. And furthermore, at that time, I was in Canada. So studying and writing on other things, not so much on Indian politics or on WikiLeaks particularly. So this will be a question that will come later, Naqvi Sahab, but let's begin with your opening remarks and then we'll pick up from there. What we'll also do is after a couple of questions from me, we'll hand over the mic to the audience so that you get one and
we'll
I
hand
get
over
two.
to the audience if there is one.
So the way it will be two questions from me, one from the audience, and then back to me. So I'm going to dominate today's session, other than, of course, our guest. So Nakwi Saab, all yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pushkar, for inviting me and my wife to this wonderful center. My brother, who has transferred to Delhi, to Goa, he came to my room and he said, "You know something? This is India International Center without the snobbery." I thought he had put it rather well, and so it's a lovely place, and I found like a child the swimming pool there, and I've been swimming with such vigor that I have my shoulder problems, and they have erupted. Now, this is a good time to talk because on the 24th of May, I entered my 50th year. I became 50 in on the 24th of May. And so this is now you, as the anchor, are not going to check me. If you are not going to check me, then this conversation is going to be a tissue of lies.
No, I'll take you up on other things, not on this.
Well, I am past my 80th year, and therefore this is a good time to reflect on things. Uh, Journalism today is different from journalism then. Life, my life in Lucknow, where I grew up, was, my God, what a city it was! What a city it was! What a city it was! It was a city with a heart as big as this. You know, it was one city which was proud of the fact that to be a doctor, you had to be a Bengali first. And now here are these Urdu speaking Lucknow gentlemen. Why? Because the Renaissance came to Calcutta. And that is where all the doctors, all the Mukhopadhyayas, all the Chatterjees, all the Banerjees, doctors, were all Bengalis. Then another great, you know, the Madrasis are the most intelligent breed we have. Why? Anything below the Vindhyas was Madrasis. So therefore, whether it was Kannadiga or Tamil or Malayalam or Telugu, it was all. It is very, they were very admired. Why? Because every ICS or IAS officer who came down and who loved Lucknow, there were a good proportion of them were from the south. There were two bookshops. In the old Delhi, there was Danish Mahal, which was Urdu, where poets like Josh Malihabadi and all these people used to come and sit in the evening. My mother had stitched a very thick sherwani for me, very thick material for winter. And one thing was we go and sit in Danish Mahal. It was very close to our house. So therefore I would sit in Danish Mahal and listen to wizened old men talking about literature and theology and philosophy. And those were the Urdu growing up years. Then came the problem. The problem was that the the lands had gone. They saw the writing on the wall. Now, should he be sent to Western education? They were very proud of their Urdu and Urdu culture and Urdu language, and they thought that they had fought the British. And since they had fought the British, how can they go and now and study their language when they have their own language? Big division in the family. And my mother's casting vote decided that four brothers would be sent to La Martiniere College, a better college and school than which I do not know exists in the world. And the sisters, the two of them, were immediately after me, were sent to a very graceful Urdu medium. They were supposed to look after culture, preserve the values, and we were going to, the predators who were going to go out and capture the world and, and get a career. The girls did rather better than us in education, and Surya, my sister after me, actually topped, and she got a fellowship to Berkeley, and which was my uncle. Being a Marxist, he thought going to America was the wrong thing to do. So therefore, she, poor girl, was circumscribed and all that. Anyway, Lucknow, Ram Advani bookshop in Hazratganj, that was the English sector, was the rendezvous. And Ram Advani, mind you, was Sindhi. There was absolutely no parochialism, no parochialism. And from then to Yogi Adityanath, the journey has been rapid, and it is nostalgia now and nothing else in my mind. Came to Delhi. Aruna, I ran away with her when she was about 19. I think she married her, and I was very naughty, and so when we got married against the wishes of her parents and my parents, did whatever we wanted to do, and then came jobs. What I was a poet, writer, all of 22 years, 23. Now, how you see, now this is where India comes in. I was not on a Brahman network. I was not on a Kayastha network. I was not on a Baniya network. I was not even on a Doon school network. I was on no network. And I came, and a friend of mine, anyway, I got an interview with the editor of the Statesman. The Statesman in those days was a paper. You could you could get a job with the Times of London, but not with the Statesman. Statesman, again, God has been very kind to me. I got a terrific school, and I got a terrific school for journalism, which was the Statesman of the 60s. Statesman of the 60s. What a school it was. And as time passes and you're precocious enough, I will give you one or two anecdotes of what values there were in journalism in those days. The then I editor. I had just done an interview with the Air India people because I wanted to travel. Now they wanted to give me a job of 700 rupees as management trainee, 900 rupees as flight purser. So I said flight purser is better because I'll travel much more and more money. So then I went to the Statesman and I got the following letter. I still etched in my mind. Dear Mr. Naqvi, although we cannot offer you employment at the moment, we are willing to take you on as an apprentice trainee for a period of 6 months. At the end of the training period, we do not guarantee you any employment, but the training you will have received here will stand you in good stead in finding work elsewhere. That was the Statesman's day in those days. It was a war paper, it was. And so anyway, so I went and joined, and within 3 months I was confirmed, and so on and so forth. Went on, and I have now traveled to 110 countries in pursuit of journalism. I don't know if there is anyone in the country who's done that. I have done everything that needed to be done in the profession. I have enjoyed myself, every bit of it. And when I was transferred for reasons other than professional to the city of Madras, now Chennai, as editor of the 6 southern editions of the paper. This was a big battle on. Now Arun Shori is a good friend of mine, but Arun and I had a big battle. So I had to be removed from Delhi, and so what they said, but I was too good, so they couldn't sack me. So they said, send him to Madras because there he will expire. This boy from Lucknow will die. So I went to the Indian Express on Mount Road, and 4-story building from 1, 2, 3, 4. Every cubicle, every room, every hall, every man, every woman was either horizontal or vertical. Everyone. Now, among them, here is Mr. Sayyid Ghulamus Sayyidain Naqvi of Lucknow, born in Mustafabad near Raebareli, as the boss. Hai na? What a trick Ramnath Goenka had, Plantation said कि भेजो मर जाएगा. My wife is my witness. I have never ever enjoyed an assignment more. And in fact, I used to go to all the centers, including Bangalore, where I met my dear friend Beena Kapoor, whose daughter runs a fabulous book center here. And all the friends, oh, I loved the South. In fact, I still believe that the South is infinitely more civilized than the North, the way it is today, even now. So I loved it. That was that. All their schemes were completely topsy-turvy. Hey, this fellow, we sent him there and he's loving it. And not only is he loving it, he's very popular. Not only popular, circulation is going up. So that was the. Now, these days, there's a lot of communalism in the world, and things are very bad for Muslims. You have to be in Delhi to recognize, realize that. And when I reflect, and I reflect on my career in those days, when my memoirs are written, and they will be written soon, now that I have revealed my top secret to you people, that now I am in the stage in my life when I shall write my memoirs, there will be 4 Punjabi Hindus who helped me, 1 Marwadi who helped me, 1 Kashmiri Pandit who helped me. Not a single Muslim. Why? Because there were very few Muslims in positions of power at that stage who could do this favor to you. Number one. Number two, the 1 or 2 who got there were extremely careful of their credentials as professional secularists. So if they did favor to a fellow Muslim, their secularism would be suspect. So they didn't. The point I'm making is that here you have all this mayhem about communalism. What was it about then that they helped me? My God, I sailed ahead. 110 countries. Koi batao. Do you know any journalist? Sab. Lele, अब Lele is a name. और जितने भी सब के सब हिंदू जिन्होंने मेरी मदद की और मुझे इस brought me to a stage where Pushkar can thinks of me, very flattering for me that he thought of me for an evening like this. It this gives you a sort of a complete not a complete but a hazy outline of my life and career. And as a journalist, I worked in 3 continents. I traveled and blah blah blah. Then phase 2 of my this conversation, I would leave to my friend Dr. Pushkar and you, ladies and gentlemen, the questions that you may ask, because I've given you a flavor of how it all started and how the wheel on the communal front where it is, and the journalistic front where it is, in national politics where it is pro-professionalism. And you read out that piece from, that was, my God, it was, you see, the diplomatic, just a little bit on the diplomacy. The 2 diplomatic stories I'll tell you. Three. May I? Or should I bring it up when you? No, please go ahead. Okay. Three little anecdotes. One is this. You see, if you are knowledgeable and if you are professionally good, and if you are neither this way or that way, you are you are ramrod straight middle, and that was I was trained in the statesman. Anyone who was trained in the statesman in the 60s cannot write a sentence under pressure. Even if pressure came, I couldn't. I would not be able to write it. That such was the training. So we were disciplined to be independent. And when you were independent, the diplomatic corps are very clever. They found out. So this thing was going on. His name is there. He then became Deputy Secretary of State in the State Department. And he was the number 2 in the American embassy.
Robert Blake.
Huh?
Robert Blake.
Robert Blake. Tall chap. He was Deputy Secretary of State, and Robert Blake, and he said, Saeed, will you come in for let's meet somewhere for coffee. So I said, well, IIC एक था. ये लोग तो खुफिया बातों के लिए IIC नहीं आते थे. They'd say, why don't you come and have coffee with us? चले गए. Rahul Gandhi. I told them exactly what I thought. And as your confrere here says, that as you will notice that I have proved absolutely right to the last syllable on that count. I get a call from Frank Wisner. Frank Wisner was a very important ambassador in Delhi, late 90s. And he said, Saeed, my son has been hunting and I want to give you a nice steak of something or the other. So will you come for lunch? So 3 of us, him, there was a black American, Afro-American, who was his first secretary, me, and what is this I hear? What is going on? The Communist Party of India, Marxist, was the Central Committee, was at that moment considering whether Jyoti Basu should be promoted by them. Should he accept? Jyoti Basu's name was up for Prime Minister. And Jyoti Basu would have been a Prime Minister of India. But within the communist movement itself, there were divisions. And there were 2 votes and 3 votes and the third vote. But that is, I must doff my hat to them and their discipline. That there were a whole lot of ideological reasons why he should not be the Prime Minister. So, but Frank Wisner was having kittens. He said, what is going on? I said, they are considering if Prakash Karath prevails, he will not be the Prime Minister. And if others prevail, the Bengal lobby prevails, then he will be Prime Minister. No, can't be. He got up and started pacing up and down. Yahan se wahan, wahan se yahan. He's gone mad, like a frothing almost. You can't be. Jaswant will be Finance Minister. Jaswant. Apropos, nothing like he's talking in a dream. Do you know that the 13-day government of Vajpayee came into being? It lasted 13 days, and Jaswant Singh did become Finance Minister. And Jaswant Singh, among the things he did was to sign the deal on Enron, in which Maharashtra and all these people were neck deep involved, and Frank himself had a deal in that particular. They were his friends who were uh, going to get the benefit of that deal. Can you believe it now? What conclusion do you draw from this? Jaswant will be fair. Ultimately, Jaswant did become finance minister. I leave it to you. I don't know what happened. Third, again, my wife is involved in that. Uh, in those days, the Bhutanese Indians, New Delhi has had a sort of hegemonic interest in some little neighboring countries. If you remember, Sikkim was incorporated. They didn't want Bhutan to go anywhere. So Bhutan had no embassy, Bhutan had no, but there was a certain openness coming up, and a decision was taken that Bhutan will have an embassy in Delhi, that Bhutan can have a representative at the UN, that embassies other than Delhi are being considered to be opened in Thimphu. Now, these were, you have no idea, these are maybe minor events in your mind, but they were very crucial in the context of China, America, India, Bhutan. You see, they were crucial. In the course of which, one day I get a call from the Bhutanese embassy. His Majesty is passing through from Havana, where he has gone to the non-aligned summit, and His Majesty wants to speak to Saeed Naqvi. Now, it's like telling a child he has money for jam. I mean, I thought that's an international scoop, because Majesty has never ever given an interview. So I flew all the way to Bombay in his hotel. Interview took place. There are certain very secret treaties, two parts of the 19, 1949 treaty, in which the security, it was very, very top sensitive matter. He told me all of that, which people never knew. And I wrote a piece. Our South Bloc was in flame. Saeed Naqvi, I had been sold out to the Bhutanese. The Bhutanese government had bought me. Even my friend Prem Shankar Jha was part of the group who said that, so therefore all the millions that I have came from Bhutan because I had been sold. And I heard the stories. It was only one foreign secretary, Salman Haider. He said, Said, the suspicions will remain, because why did he pick you out for the interview? I said, he picked me out for the interview because in those days I used to walk from Defense Ministry through every cubicle in South Block, ending up in the Prime Minister's office. You see, in those days there was a security car. Itna hua nahi tha. So they asked me, because I was the person who knew the most about what was going on this front and various other fronts in South Block. He bought it. He said, that makes sense to me, because no one else did. So I had to absolve myself of the sin of having done an international scoop. And I was there. Yeah, this is the Indian mind. If you have done something out of the way, then yeah, some money has changed hands. So I lived through that. These are three little anecdotes of my international politics, and that is it. Aruna?
Naqvi Saab, let's get back to this a little bit.
Hmm?
This is early 2000s, right?
Yes.
A couple of years ago, and we are going to be talking about the Congress a little bit and
Hmm.
then something else. A little over 2 years ago, I think Yogendra Yadav, in an article for the print, it was a very catchy expression.
Who?
Yogendra Yadav,
Yeah. Ha, ha, ha.
he wrote, he used the term, the way he described it, he said, the Congress must die, right?
Hmm.
I think it became a
Hmm.
very catchy expression for a while. Uh, my sense, and I'm a casual observer of Indian politics, my sense too is that going forward, if you look at the Indian party system at the national level and perhaps even at the state level, uh, there is, other than the Congress, there does not seem to be any party which has a national character. But looking at the Congress today, it no longer appears to be credible to that extent. Now, going forward, how important do you think it is that a credible national party is born? I mean, there are two puzzles there. One, actually, which is that you do not have a second national party which can be a challenge to the ruling party, the Bharatiya Janata Party.
Hmm.
The second one, and this is just a casual interest of mine, given that environmental issues have become so important in India, how is it
Hmm.
that even in Delhi,
Hmm.
one of the most polluted capital,
Hmm.
probably the most polluted capital in the world, does not have a green party?
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, कैसा है? I mean, look, there are people who told me, and I agree with them, that in intellectual terms, Delhi is probably more fertile and has some of the brightest minds compared to any other city in the world. Definitely, of all kinds. People of all ideological persuasions, with all sorts of backgrounds, homegrown talent, talent educated abroad, people who have thought about different issues. I mean, it's a completely different matter that, in terms of policy, we haven't done as well. But just in terms of having the right kinds of minds,
Hmm.
people who can think, reflect, talk about just about everything. Pehla, why is there no? I mean, the closest we have is Aam Aadmi Party, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But why not a second, third national party? Is the death of the Congress important? Does it matter? And the Green Party question.
You have asked about half a dozen questions there. Uh, and therefore, when the answers in going through your questions, one will end up confusing the audience. So let's look at the first broad picture. The broad picture is that there are how many states do we have? About 27, 30 states, if not. Each take out your currency note. Anyone? Every denomination has to be indicated. Every denomination has to be indicated in at least 17 languages. Take a look. Nowhere in the whole world is that kind of an experiment on. 17 languages. So you're multilingual, multi-ethnic, multicultural, and you have a federal constitution, but you have a unitary mindset. The unitary mindset comes from the ruling class. The Indian ruling class somehow imagines that as from in the days of the independence, we had the national party called the Congress. Then it crossed over to the BJP. Now there should only be two ruling class parties. It is not thought here, it is virtually visceral. But anything else disturbs you because your ownership of this land is complete and you have nothing else. Uh, we are the only country in the world at the moment where we are inundated with cars, motor cars. Wherever, even from Gibraltar, you can now drive into Spain and through the Pyrenees to France and through France to right up to Wagah border. But you stop there. Our youngsters can't drive in any direction. We have circumscribed ourselves in the real estate called India. Everywhere else, even in Cyprus, where there's a real division, people from north do go to the south and the other way around. Here, you have created on both sides. Our youngsters can't drive out. If your mind, that has an effect on the psyche, on a whole national psyche. You begin to look inwards. Having said that, let us take a little bit of history also. Up to Mrs. Gandhi would not lose an election. Nehru, well, the communal factor comes in. Jawaharlal Nehru, until his death in May 1964, was the undisputed leader of Indian Muslims. There was no one else. But within the cabinet itself, there were divisions on Nehru. So Nehru was more or less left with his ICS, Foreign Service boys, and he ran foreign policy, which he did brilliantly. The rest of it was run by the backroom boys. And one day I wrote, and they were very angry with me. I said, Nehru comes out like the virtuous young man who played piano in a brothel without knowing what went on upstairs. Now I'll tell you what am I saying? I am saying that my own relative, Kazim Raza in UP, was the Director General of Police in 1947. And he was to be, in those days, they had Inspector General. In fact, he was going to be the IG. So he went to Pantji. Pantji said, I said, I've just come to say my salams because I'm now going to take over as the IG of the state, of which you are the Chief Minister. He said, sit down, please. You go, उधर एक मुल्क बनाया गया है. Pantji had a habit of, his neck was a little touch of Parkinson was there like this. He says, एक मुल्क बनाया गया है. There's a country has been created there. In that country, it is in our interest that that country stabilizes itself, that it's a stable country. We have a secretariat. Every state has a secretariat. We have a secretariat in Delhi. They don't. Their new capital is Karachi. So I feel people like you and your talent would be much more useful there. Now, look into this mindset. Look into the mindset. Kazim Raza went away. Kazim Raza, Saeed Raza's uncle. I'm telling my wife, he went away and he retired as the Chief of Intelligence of Pakistan. All of you, the book should be available in your library. If it isn't, get it. If you don't have it, buy it from her daughter's bookshop. The years of my life. No, the years of my life. Words to that effect, I'm not certain of that. Rajeshwar Dayal, ICS, was the first Home Secretary of UP in 1947. He writes there, therefore it's there in book in his memoirs, that I went, me and Mr. Jetli, the IG of police then, went with a tank, a box full of evidence against Guru Goldwalkar that plans were being made for a huge action somewhere near Muzaffarnagar. So he took it there. Panchi listened to me and he wrote and he said, you can leave the evidence here. This matter will have to be discussed in cabinet. He said, how can you discuss this issue in cabinet? That means you're leaking it. It was leaked out and the Guru went away. No, at this point, I'm not saying that whether Guru should have been arrested or not. I'm saying this was the thinking at variance from Jawaharlal Nehru's. So the divisions were there. And the BJP was within the Congress party. Congress was the national movement, a movement confederated behind a program, a section of interests behind a program for independence. All interests. In one same election, you had a near crypto communist, Krishna Menon, and S.K. Patil, who was to the right of the John Birch Society, and him on a Congress ticket fighting elections in Bombay. So that was the composition. So it had to give. The BJP, a great deal of the BJP then, was inside the Congress. Thinking, you see, the RSS is different. The RSS component is different, and there were different attitudes. RSS, Sardar Patel had one attitude, Nehru had another. Towards even after the Gandhi murder, there were different attitudes. Let me fast forward and come somewhere near that story. Rajiv was a friend of mine. I knew him quite well. He had asked me to do certain things for him and join him, which I didn't, because I knew, like that mad boy there, Kalidas, I am also a mad fellow. I can't. I knew. I just couldn't do a job like in the Prime Minister's Secretariat or whatever. I couldn't. I couldn't. I could be a journalist, and which I remained. He was a friend. He came to power after his mother was assassinated in 1984. You and I and everybody thought then that the 3/4 majority, or was it 4/5 majority, that Rajiv got in the 1984 elections was because the sympathy factor. Mrs. Gandhi had been killed, and therefore the people's sympathy was with Rajiv. It took me a while to realize that this is not the way the party boys were looking at it. Mrs. Gandhi had been shot dead by the Sikh bodyguards. Mrs. Gandhi's murder took place after years of insurgency in the Punjab, Sikh insurgency. Let me be absolutely. This verdict was seen as Hindu consolidation against minority appeasement. We are appeasing far too many minorities. Look what Sikhs did there. Now, you never looked at it this way, I never looked at it, but the Congress party told me later when I checked out that A.B. Kamath, Gadgil, wonderful man from Pune, he used to bring his own bajra to Delhi. He was a typical Pune man. He only ate bajra, so he used to bring his atta from Pune. Wonderful chap, old congressman who read the New Statesman. There were two of them. One was he, the other was Narayan Dutt Tiwari. You'd be surprised. Who, till the end, read the New Statesman. The New Statesman was Panditji's magazine also. Why Panditji? Because we in our house in Mustafabad, could not say Jawaharlal, could not say Nehru. Kya kaha? Boom, my grandfather's voice. He was Panditji, Pandit Nehru. So reverential were we to him. And then later on, of course, we felt that he had let us down in 6 different ways. Not deliberately, but he was not able to do things that we thought he would. Now, this boy called Rajiv Gandhi has been told that this vote is not sympathy vote, but this is Hindu consolidation and you've got to hold on to it. So what does he do? He goes and opens the locks of the temple. So what else does he do? He goes to Ayodhya and announces, I am going to bring in Ram Raj. So don't blame Modi ji. It was all done by the party boys, and I know who did it. Many of them who wanted to read. Now it became a jhagda between Tweedledum and Tweedledee. Who is more Hindu? This is the competition now. Who is more Hindu than the next? How did we come to that? Now we come to the sorrowful part of the story, which, unless you read this book, you will not understand. So I urge you, this is my play. I've written as a play for a particular reason. You read this. Let me put it this way. There was a thing called the Hindu rate of growth. So Hindu rate of growth and Hindu rate of reconciliation and social improvement was taking place in the caste front also. A man called V.P. Singh, Vishwanath Pratap Singh, whom Girilal Jain hated. Oh my God, what editorial. Go back to Girilal Jain's edit page articles on Vishwanath Pratap Singh, Raja Vishwanath Pratap Singh. He threw a boulder in the pond which raised a tsunami by dusting up the Bandal Commission for his own political reasons and creating 27% reservation in government jobs for the other backward castes, for which read Mulayam Singh Yadav, Lalu Prasad Yadav. This was the OBC factor. These are the people who are the middling, the middle below the Savarna, who are now the new elite, new landed elite. Now, when this came up, when caste became the only determinant, new chief ministers came up. A country which had, every state had a Brahmin chief minister, had none. Lalu here, Mulayam here, everywhere, they're gone. Then you had a reaction. L.K. Advani's Rath Yatra from Somnath to Ayodhya, the Ram Jaram Bhoomi issue was heated up. Now, caste Mandal was going to be foiled by Kamandal. Mandal, Kamandal. This became the conflict. You are going to stir up caste politics. I am going to stir up, I'm going to target you're a Muslim. So that everyone coalesces with me. So I am going to go in for Hindu consolidation, but that is a term you heard before. That is what Rajiv thought he had achieved. So now again a double distilled Hindu consolidation. Now the backdrop is caste. Caste has to be foiled. And this has gone out of control. And this caste and communal. So communalism in India, Pushkar, is a political project. You don't hate me. But you have been set up that hatred of me is in interest of the whole community because I have to be targeted. Otherwise, this fragmentation in Indian society is going to continue eternally. It has to be consolidated somewhere. So the answer is, oh, we've got 200 million Muslims, cash them, in-cash them. Now, further, communalism, beef, communalism, hijab, communalism, love jihad, communalism, meat shops, communalism, halal shops. These keep the temperature. They keep the temperature. You have to tie communalism to nationalism. You have to do a Balakot to get the result of 2019 elections. Communalism tied to nationalism becomes a lethal force. Therefore, not only do you have beef, you need beef, you need love jihad, you need hijab, you need all of these and many more. They'll come up. Shops. This shop should go, that shop should not be there. The Muslim, Urdu is Muslim, etc., etc. No ghazal at that function. Ghazal is Muslim. I mean, it'll excessive. Look what's going on in Delhi. 100 villages around Lucknow, around Delhi, like Muhammadpur, Sultanpur, they're being renamed. Now, why? If this is the national purpose, you are saying Green Party, you must be dreaming, man. Haath milao. Green Party, this is the stuff of Indian politics, my dear bell. Caste, इस जाति को काटो, उस जाति को मिलाओ, इनको हिंदू मुस्लिम के खिलाफ करो, इस कंस्टिट्यूएंसी में उसको आइसोलेट करो, ये है और ये पॉलिटिक्स है. You want Green Party? No issues. The entire political game. When I entered my good friend Pushkar's very well-run Goa International Center, I saw lots of walruses jumping in the swimming pool. I said, what is going on? Aruna said, they're not Goans. I said, where are they from? Some from Bellary. 120 MLAs and functionaries under the auspices of Mr. Basavaraj of Karnataka. See, this is why I'm a journalist. You see, They were sent here to have a good time because elections are coming in 8 weeks. So they were here jumping in the swimming pool, getting drunk, fully boozed up. So this was going on. So भाई ये है, this is the stuff of your politics. Don't ask for a green party. Don't ask for anything sensible for the time being. At the moment, I am at peace here. I am this thing about Muslim is a they don't hate me. You can't hate me. I'm not a hateable person. You simply cannot. But it is your survival. Unless we target them, our pyramid is going to wobble and we are going to have these people sitting on our heads. Now, I'll, with your permission, थोड़ा सा और मैं अफसाना बता दूं. With your permission. A month ago, we were watching television. A girl called Ishita Barwa, I think in the NDTV, she did a program. Scene 1, Raebareli, which is my district actually, my village of Mustafabad, or Qasba of Mustafabad is in Raebareli. Very famous because everyone thinks it is Mrs. Gandhi's hometown. It isn't. It is my hometown. And in Raebareli, some upper caste boys. I didn't want to bring it down to upper caste and lower caste, but uske baghair baat banti nahi. You can't tell this story because elections come, this jati, this jati, this jati, this jati. Elections over, no one wants to discuss it. Don't talk about it. You won't have a debate on that subject here. Election, this jati है, that jati है, सब न्यू जाति है. ये तो भंडारी हैं और फिर वो डिमके हैं और ये फलाने, उनके इनको काट देंगे तो वो हो जाएगा. You want Green Party? So these upper caste boys get hold of a lower caste. Excuse me, talking too much. At the end of it, these boys have him in a ghera, in a circle, and this upper caste boy, the leader of the boys, he puts his leg out. And he says, now you lick my leg, my feet, my foot. So he starts from his heel, no, from the thumb, from the toe. So he starts on the toe and this goes on for heaven knows how long. Now they have filmed it because they want to make it viral as a lesson. देखो, this is the way we treat. इनको ऊपर नहीं आने देना. उसमें से वो लीक हो जाता है. It leaks. That is how Ishita got that footage. Next, there's a temple, which there's a chalk circle. I would urge you to, in this last month, Ishita Barwa's program on caste in NDTV, get it out, watch it, and if you have the courage, get people to discuss it. Then next is, there's a circle outside a temple, at the foot of the temple, where this man is not doing the Shashtang, but he is wearing trousers and his gown, and by the scruff of his neck he's being held, and his nose is being rubbed in that circle. Now he has to do that half day. Why? He's violated some, he's some lower caste chap who's done some upper caste thing. Ye ho gaya. A girl with a thali has been pushed away because she can't enter that place with a puja where she has some asta that she wants to going for a job, that if she came here she will get it. No, this is not for you. You are a lower caste girl. So that is in the same program. Then comes this bridegroom. As you know, we are a feudal people. We imagine that every bridegroom is a prince. So he comes riding on a horse. And that horse, so why shouldn't a poor Dalit also sit on a horse? So he was coming on a horse in front of his bride. They stopped the horse, they pushed him down, they kicked him, and they cut the one leg of the horse. He says, never will you do this in our village again. In this vein, it goes on and on and on and on. Now, a communal issue, now I'm putting it to you, a communal issue would then you have four peoples in those four windows and they'd be sitting there and they'd be discussing it. OSC said this, and so said this. On this particular series, no discussion. I asked people in NDTV, I said, why not? That's the only abhinay I can do for you. So, no, it couldn't be done. So, gentlemen, ladies, there are two things in India. The communalism is a political project. Caste is an ancient habit, ancient social habit. If you go to any village, an atrocity is taking place today. It was a rare footage that one day she did it. This is the story, and you want a Green Party? This is the clash that is on. Now, the wonder of wonders is that despite that, we have progressed. Despite all of this rot that is there, despite the dimak, the termite, we have progressed. I live better than my father did. Everyone. A new middle class has been created. But this middle class is completely different from the others. That division is hopelessly expansive and it is expanding, is growing bigger and bigger. Yes, you are creating a middle class, but the poorer are getting, there was some figure that we have as so many billionaires now. There's some staggering figure. And the poor and the poorest of the poor are remaining. Now, what will happen in the end? I do not know. I do not know. Whether the IMF formula will work or they will not work, the trickle down will happen or it hasn't happened wherever they tried it. So what will happen? I do not know. So in the foreseeable future, I see the politics of this country being mired in regionalism, casteism, and maximum someone of good sense, like Basavaraj of Karnataka, their minister, will send 120 of his party men, including MLAs and others, for a holiday to Goa International Center, among others. Thank you, sir.
I'll have an audience question, but Just a couple of things. Uh, you talked about communalism as a political project, and it's not a question; it's just an observation. So that I don't get you talking again. So you talked about communalism as a political project. So far, so good. And you talked about
Sorry?
caste. You talked about communalism as a political project because this is the way it is. And you talked about caste as an ancient habit. Now, my question is this: if the larger political project is, uh, organized around, Hinduism, Hindus above all else, all this focus on caste doesn't it completely undermine that project? I mean, why would any part? I mean, either you are saying that just like the Congress of the old, which had the BJP within it, the BJP of today has others within it who are completely oblivious or indifferent to the larger project because caste undercuts it completely. So why? No, I mean this is something we can take up later, but I
Mm,
thought I would just point it out. The other interesting thing when when you said that the Muslim you have to target a minority community, in this case, the Muslim. I don't remember the author's name, but there was somebody who wrote that if Cuba did not exist, the United States would invent it.
mm, mm, mm.
I think it was Italo Calvino. But
Yeah.
if India didn't have Muslims, we would probably invent them,
Mm,
right?
mm, mm.
Because in the kind of politics,
Yes, आप पढ़िए आप लोग. I'm not promoting my book, but please read it. There is some answers to the questions that we've raised are there.
okay, we'll have one, maybe two audience questions.
बोलिए था.
This present dispensation has any sincere goal of uplifting the Dalit class and creating a new class of untouchables out of the Muslims?
The Sachar Committee report of 2005 affirms without any shadow of a doubt that that has already happened. So what you are, it is no longer in the realm of speculation. It is already a reality. It has already, by various variables, they have been demoted to the lowest of the low in various places. In various places. You see, there's another thing. Sorry, there's one. As points come, I will keep adding this because the question will not be asked. You see, there is no such thing as a Muslim monolith in India. This is another fact. There is no such thing as a Hindu monolith in India either. But Muslim monolith, the Muslim from Awadh is different from the Muslim from Bengal, is different from the Mapila in Kozhikode, is different from the Labbai in Ramanathapuram, is different from the Kilakrai Muslims, is different from the Assamese Muslims. They're all amalgamated into the local cultures. I mean, it's a very funny thing. It will never occur to many Indians, and it does not, that Gurudev Tagore, whom we've given the status of our national poet, remarkable man, he, if you read his poetry and if you listen to his songs, there's very little God there. Very little. It's a he's a very secular, extremely eclectic, very Brahmo individual. A great man. But the poet, Bengali poet, whose every line and every passage is Shakti, Durga, Kali, Tandav, is Qazi Nazrul Islam, whom you have arbitrarily made the national poet of Bangladesh. Strange things you've done. Strange things you've done. Kalamandalam Haidar Ali in Kerala is the biggest Kathakali performer. Kathakali is all mythology. How do you compare him with me? I'm full of Urdu poetry. He doesn't know one. I'll give you a story, a very interesting story. When I was editor in the South, for a few days, Muhammad Koya became Chief Minister of Kerala. So he was Chief Minister, I was editor of the chain of Indian Express. So he invited me for dinner. He knew no Urdu, no English. I knew no Malayalam. So we sat through somehow an evening, at the end of which he produced 7 different varieties of bananas by way of dessert, which was a culture shock to me. You know. So where was Islam in all of this? एक किस्सा और सुन लो. One more. I get a call from Inder Gujral, Prime Minister. He says, Saeed, I want you to come with me to Dhaka. Now you don't say no. Now, Prime Minister, I will think about it. You don't do that, no. I say, of course. So why? There was a tri-national summit, Pakistan, India and Bangladesh. Inder had these ideas. They were meeting in Dhaka. So in those days, journalists used to accompany them. So there were Mukhopadhyayas and Chattopadhyayas and Banerjees and Mukherjees and Ghoshes and my friend Nikhil Chakravarti. So there were a whole bevy of Bengalis. So Inder, being a Punjabi, he thought that it might be a good idea to toss in a Muslim in his delegation. So he rang me up because 2 Muslim countries were going to be there. And so I said, I'll come. Tarun Basu remembers the stories very well. So we went, and as soon as we landed and crossed the immigration, it was, Hi baap re, ilish maach khabo abo gale lago. Are sala. Oh baap re, अरे मैंने कहा ये क्या हो रहा है यार? सब एक हो गए. They all became indistinguishably one. Me with my Islam sucking my thumb in one corner. Language had trumped religion in the creation of Bangladesh itself, and language had trumped Mr. Inder Gujral's effort to introduce a Muslim factor in a Bengali situation. You follow? I mean, it was a huge embarrassment for me, but I enjoyed it. I have a sense of humor. And they all came back with this ice boxes of Ilish, big from Pabda River. And all of them very happy. Bhalo, bhalo, ki khabar? Oh, baap re.
I feel like this is also what you spoke earlier. Isn't it very specific to the cowbelt culture, which has been dominating over the rest of India, where the communal divide is more? For example, when you come down in the Maharashtra or down south, we have a large tradition of social reformers, which is somehow absent in the north. After Kabir, I don't find anybody, I might be wrong.
Sab Kali.
So, is it one of the reasons why we are, and see, and that's how I feel even the Kanchiram factor failed there in the north.
You see, you have put your finger on the button. What is going on? Unfortunately, I'm headquartered in Delhi at this point. Unfortunately. The tragedy the disfigurement of the polity that is taking place in the cow belt is being superimposed on the rest of the country, which is not warranted by fact. You are absolutely correct. That is where hope is. You see, this project, अब you have put your finger on it. देखिए एक चीज और याद रखिए, that we are going through a new phase. This is everything that I've said, what I'm telling you now is plus. In his very first speech as Prime Minister of India, when he became Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, in 2014, in his very first speech in Parliament, he said something which no Prime Minister, certainly no national leader ever had said. He said, and please mark my word, he said, हमको 1200 साल की गुलामी से निकलना है. So far, we had thought that decor was that you and I have together fought the British, and that the foreign element that we got rid of were the British. Now the Prime Minister of India is saying that we have to get rid of 1200 years of Gholami. Now, Gholami translated means slavery, which is not subjugation. 1200 years of subjugation. In fact, if you go by that logic, then you will have to add 193 years more. 193 years, because the Cheruman Perumal Mosque was built in Cranganore near Cochin in 629. The Prophet of Islam, Muhammad, died in 632. So 3 years before his death, an Indian Hindu nobleman had built a mosque which is still there, Cheruman Perumal. Why did he build it? He built it because these traders who are coming from there, they needed a place of worship. Now, had there been electoral politics then, the Hindu traders would have got together and said, this is a Muslim appeasement, let us polarize and win the election. So,
Same thing with maybe the Syrian Christians in Kerala. Similar case
no,
with the Syrian.
they are trying to create a little thing between the Christian church and the Muslims. Some conflict has to be on. Now, if this is, you see, I wish there was, to get, for my own peace, भाई हिंदू राज ले लो, शांति से तो छोड़ो. इसमें तो हिंदू राज नहीं मिलेगा, continuous turmoil मिलेगा, because it is too big a country, too diverse a country, too many creatures to polarize against. It's an endless project. But you have tossed the net has been cast by the Prime Minister of India in his very first speech in Parliament in 2014 May, that we have to get rid of 1200 years of Gholami, which means subjugation. अब हम कहाँ जाएं? Janab, where do I go? I have subjugated you for 1200 years. What are you going to do to me? Bolo.
I'll bring you back to the statement you were talking about, Frank Wisner, and what happened after that. Could you explain that a bit more? I mean,
Frankly, Bisna didn't want, naturally, no American wanted a communist prime minister of India. So that was big anxiety. If Jyoti Basu became prime minister, then, oh my God, the hell. You see, this is another yarn. It's all well, a different theme that we'll get onto. That a communist prime minister of India was unthinkable, number one. The subsidiary plot was that they had worked out an arrangement with the BJP and Jaswant Singh as finance minister to pass the Enron project through Dabhol, and in which Visna himself had interest, direct interest, which were revealed later. And Sharad Pawar had them. I mean, Maharashtra government was neck deep, but here they get away with nothing. At least in America, they made a play, Enron. It was a play very successful on Broadway. It was played in London. It was played on Broadway. Never played in India. That's how democratic we are.
do you believe America has a hand in Indian politics?
Oh, of course. China has, India has. Their embassies are there to influence us. And somehow the Americans have had a free run. They have been a little more influential than others, particularly after 1990, the collapse of the Soviet Union. They have been, but the present war in Ukraine is now the tide is turning. They went in some kind of shame from Afghanistan. They tried to make a comeback this is August, September, October, November, December, January. In January, they tried to make a comeback in Kazakhstan by regime change. The Russians moved in there and they stopped that. Then the Russians had stopped them even in Syria. So everyone was talking about decline, American decline, American decline. And as in the whole film Psycho, you go like this, American decline, American decline. We are not declining. So we shall go kicking and fighting. Ukraine is not about Ukraine at all. Ukraine, the key battle is the transfer of power from west to east over their dead bodies. They don't want that to happen. Russia is the front state. The basic target even there is not Russia. It's China that menaces them. The rise of China, rise of China, rise of China. That is menacing them. On 4th of May, Xi Jinping and Putin, they made a joint statement. It goes into 40 pages. Get it. In which they announced friendship with no end, without any limits. Now, if these two are like this, Iran is with them, Central Asia is with them, all of Africa is with them, Latin America is with them. So, this white power is left with warring sections in Europe and America. They don't want to give up that slot. That is what the fight. They don't want to. खूब पर्दा है कि चिलमन से लगे बैठे हैं, साफ छुपते भी नहीं, सामने आते भी नहीं. So they are fighting with supporting Ukraine to fight to the last Ukrainian. But finish that fellow Putin, please. You may die. We will give you all but we will not get into battle. Why? Because supposing he goes nuclear and Europe If he goes nuclear first, Europe will go. Then you will go. Then all of us will go. So it's a very sensitive point we are sitting. So you got me to say, I think you knew that I would give you a long answer.
Okay. I think we'll make it the last question. And
Sorry?
this is something जो सवेरे में आपसे मैंने कहा कि I'm going to ask you this. Which Indian politician do you think would be the best prime minister India never had?
Oh, Jyoti Basu would have been a very good prime minister, by the way. I have a personal vote for him. But I think the best prime minister Congress never had was Atal Bihari Vajpayee. The best prime minister the Congress never had. That was Atalji. I have a weakness for him. This is the subjective gets into the thing. He would come to like a Hyderabad house party and sort of hug me from behind, like this. मैंने आपका लेख पढ़ा, मैं आपकी हर बात से सहमत हूँ. And you see, he had come out of the RSS stable, so he knew them. They were all his juniors. He could ask them to shut up. But he was an evolving man. He enjoyed his prawns and he enjoyed his evening whiskey. Now, if you consider that he decadent, well, then he, according to me.
So, is your preference for decadent politicians as well?
No, not that. No, human. People who were human. He was an RSS man. He was committed. His patriotism could not be. He went out of it. The two completely different attitudes to Pakistan within the BJP. Atalji's attitude was, we cannot have permanent enemies in our neighborhood. The new establishment says we have to have a permanent enemy in Pakistan because that whole the communalism as nationalism comes in only. You need enmity with Pakistan. So not only do you need enmity with me, you need Pakistan, you need the Kashmir issue. It's a triangle. New Delhi, Srinagar, India, Pakistan, Hindu, Muslim. ये एक कॉम्प्लेक्स ऑफ इश्यूज है. इसमें आप इसको यूं देखिए, यूं, ये ट्रायंगल को ऐसे देखिए. ये श्रीनगर, कश्मीर, इंडिया, पाकिस्तान, हिंदू, मुस्लिम, ये एक ट्रायंगल है. एक लाइन को टच कीजिए तो ऑल द अदर लाइंस आर अफेक्टेड. Simple law of geometry. So anyone who says he's going to Kashmir to solve it is telling a lie. You have to go through Pakistan. So Pakistan, the minute you bring Pakistan in, communal temperature in the country drops. The minute communal temperature drops, your Hindu consolidation is hit for a 6. What comes on top again? Caste politics again. As he says, but only in the cow belt. Why should the rest of the country suffer? भाई, यहाँ पे social reform हो चुका है, problems हैं. But why should the rest of the country? This is आप पूछ लीजिए साहब, हम तो तैयार हैं.
Sir, sir, I like print media more than electronic media. So, but my question is, sir, I've seen a lot of your interviews and I'm pretty impressed. on NDTV or Times Now and DD also. But then I see that only DD, that is Delhi Doordarshan, they show so much of positive news. But whereas channels like NDTV, Times Now, they don't show at all. And we are all missing that.
I hate to say it, but all the communalism that you have around is because of them. Not NDTV, but most of the you have to see the Hindi channels. I mean, they are spewing. You see, the support that the BJP and the RSS has in the media has to be studied, because it isn't, who the hell is the media? Media, the fellow with a mic in front of him? No, it is the proprietor. So once you have Ambani, Nagpur, Delhi, Washington DC, all sewn up, who the hell are you and who am I? You see, that is the problem. This independence of the media is a global fraud. Look at it. You go back the coverage of Ukraine. I mean, they do the thing. Everything is tilted their way. The other side's views you don't know. And what has happened is that suddenly Liz Doucette and Christiane Amanpour have disappeared. Why? Because they have losing face. Because the story is not evolving the way it was, they had projected it. So the collapse of the credibility of the Western media, same thing happens here. अब you think Arnab is liked, unless very unthinking rabble may sit at home and say, oh, terrific, he's abusing them. Wonderful. Possible. I don't know. I personally think it's very dangerous. The media in this country is culpable in the situation that we are in.
Okay, I think this is where we'll end, so that we give you some rest.
I could have.
breather. I bet you could go on for another
There is
30
no
minutes,
end.
45 minutes.
Where is there an end to it? The voiceless wailing. No end to the withering of withered flowers that drop their petals and remain motionless. No end to it. No end to the things in the heart.